Um, so Kathy is joining us from TFC Recycling, and she's the Educational Outreach Coordinator. With a passion for educating everyone she meets on the benefits of recycling, Kathy Russell aims to inspire and empower children as well as adults on how they can protect our environment. Having received numerous awards and recognition for her recycling outreach programs, Kathy's vision is to make environmental stewardship second nature in young minds. As Educational Outreach Coordinator for TFC Recycling, Kathy educates thousands of students through the state of Virginia and was a key person in helping to implement school recycling programs in the cities of Chesapeake and Virginia Beach. Prior to joining TFC in July of 2004, Ms. Russell worked in organics with Browning Ferris Industries and later transitioned to waste removal for BFI and Allied Waste. Ms. Russell currently serves as the chairman of the Keep Suffolk Beautiful, the past chairman of Suffolk Businesswomen, and is very active in her church. Kathy just became a dog show judge for the United Kennel Club and looks forward to her upcoming judgment assignments throughout the United States. Kathy and her husband, Steve, have 2 grown children and 3 granddaughters. Okay, so I'll turn it over to you, Kathy. Let me stop sharing. Are you going to
Not
share
very
anything?
excited. No, just what I gave you. So not very exciting. I mean, I've been talking trash for over 30 years and very blessed to be at TFC for 19 in July. Was 19 in July. So getting close to 20, so I'm excited about it. So I see a couple of people have were with us on the tour that we did a couple of weeks ago. How many of y'all are? I know Katie was. I know Sam and Francie. Anybody else?
And Diana.
Okay, Diana. Okay, sorry. But anyway, so we're going to talk today about recycling. Basically, if you took our tour, you're going to hear a lot of the same things. But I think one of our big focuses tonight is to keep recycling in Hampton Roads. I was just telling Sam, so are y'all all familiar with Ask HR Green? Have you heard of it, anybody? So
Uh,
what it is all the cities and counties in the Hampton Roads area, and I think it's like 17 counties and or cities. Like it goes as far as James City County, York County, Poquoson, Williamsburg, all the way to Virginia Beach, Norfolk, Suffolk, and then goes as far as like Surrey and Isle of Wight and so forth. But anyway, they just applied for a grant, and let me so I won't misquote it. Just found out throughout the United States that they just received the grant. And it was, I mean, a lot of the big cities in the area or in the United States applied for it. And I think it's really cool because Hampton Roads is the one that received it. So bear with me. I think it's $1.96 million that is coming to this area. And it's a 3 year, it'll be stretched out for 3 years. And what's going to happen is it's based on recycling education. So I just think that's just the coolest thing because, you know, what we realize is that people don't know what to recycle and they don't understand the reason why we do what we do. So anyway, we're going to start off with the short video that I sent Sam that talks about a little bit about TFC and what we do, and then I want this to be interactive because that's just how I roll. So go ahead.
Give me 1 second while I pull it up.
Okay. So just while you're getting that ready is you know, a lot of people were talking about Chesapeake that stopped recycling maybe not quite 2 years ago, and that Virginia Beach is questioning recycling because of the cost, which typically is not that expensive. And then other cities are trying to figure out what they're going to do. So, is recycling live and well? It absolutely is. And is recycling is there merit to recycling? There absolutely is. So, I want to show you this quick video that talks about recycling and TFC.
Can you guys hear it?
Not yet.
You cannot hear it?
No.
Oh boy. All right, hold on. Let me make sure.
It's from YouTube, so let's blame that.
Yeah, don't know how to um don't know if there's options to change that. Dr. Taylor, do you know how to make YouTube videos project on Zoom?
So it's more about, do you have the volume up on your computer, like, and make sure that the YouTube thing is off mute? Then go to share on your Zoom, and then you
Okay,
should see a section that says share audio. Do you see that?
not sharing.
On your Zoom screen.
Um,
At the bottom, you know how you share your screen?
yeah, when I click that, it
Uh,
doesn't show like anything. It just says advanced sharing options, and it doesn't say anything about audio.
I
mm.
think it's pretty hidden with just I know that you have to tick a box or something like that to share
Yeah,
the
you have to check the
audio.
box. So did the screen come up for the sharing the different things?
No, I just like hit a button to share, and that's it.
Mm. Yeah, and I'm
Oh,
not
share
on that
computer
computer.
sounds. I got it.
Exact. Okay. Great, great.
Okay, thank
This
you.
is why I got you to do it, Sam.
Well, of course, then I didn't know how. Okay,
You're fine. You're fine.
can you guys hear it?
The amount of trash that
Kind of
we're generating as a society has increased significantly over the
Yes, we can
years.
hear it.
The best way to handle it is to recycle it, to give it another life, to turn it back into a new product. So our truck will collect the material at the curb, and then we'll bring it back to our facility. The truck empties the material onto the tipping floor. We have a large loader that will scoop up this recyclable material and put it into a drum feeder, load it into our materials recovery facility, which is a bunch of conveyors and technology, both mechanical separation and optical sorting, where we're removing paper from bottles and cans and then selling it to end users that will turn this into new products.
So this is just the little snapshot of what we do. A lot of people think that recycling doesn't happen. I mean, I've been there again 19 years, and they say every day I hear it almost that recycling really doesn't happen. Why am I doing it? If a load is slightly contaminated, the whole load is rejected. That's absolutely false. So what actually happens is, and we do a lot of residential as well as commercial, meaning business recycling. And what we do is we take it through our scale, we weigh it, we let everybody know that, this number city or this business recycled X, Y, and Z. And then it goes to what we call our tipping floor. Well, our tipping floor is when I came in the industry from garbage, it's like, oh, that doesn't look like bottles or cans or whatever. It has a lot of bottles and cans in it, but one of the biggest offenders of what we do is people put things in plastic bags. And plastic bags is probably the worst thing in the world. Yes, grocery bags are recyclable, but anything that is a tangler wraps around our machinery, and then it really messes up our machinery. The other thing that we have a major problem with is that everybody thinks if it has a triangle on it on the bottom of plastics or on anything, a recycle symbol, that it's recyclable. Recycling is very market driven. So it means that is there a market that once we recycle or process it, does it get recycled, and is there a home for it? So those are the two obstacles that we have in recycling. So once the loader picks up the material and puts it into what we call our tub, it turns around, it goes up a conveyor system, and then we have about 6 to 8 pickers, depending on availability and how much volume and so forth. And so what those pickers are actually doing is they're picking out things before it gets to our machinery. Our machinery, when we purchased it, and we're constantly updating, was about almost $12 million, $11.5 million. And that was back in the 2004, no, 2005 is when we purchased it. So anyway, so the pickers are picking what they're doing. And then what happens is we use mechanical screens. We use photo identification. We use it split second picture taking. We use puffs of air. We use magnets, whether it's a an eddy current magnet or a rare earth magnet, and everything gets sorted. From the time that it's sorted, it ends up being a cube that weighs probably a couple thousand pounds, depending on the commodity. And then it's examined and then it goes to market. Now, everything stays in the United States except what we call fiber. And what fiber is it is, whether it's boxes, cardboard boxes, or mixed paper or so forth. We break it down in two categories of fiber. Now, the fiber does not stay in the United States. Because we're so close to the port of Norfolk and the port of Portsmouth, it actually goes to other countries like Indonesia, Mexico. It does not go to China anymore. It did for many, many, many years. And then it gets made into more boxes. Now, what is the reason why? Because again, we don't have enough. We don't have enough mills in the United States to support all the paper that us Americans use. So anyway, we only accept 3 different types of plastic. A lot of people think if it's plastic, it's recyclable. Well, only things that we accept is we accept water and soda bottles as one category. Detergent bottles, like your Tide detergent bottles, your colorful detergent bottles is another. And then your milk jugs, or sometimes you see water jugs in that. That's the only plastics we take. And then we take metal cans like vegetable cans, food type cans. And we also take aluminum cans. We take glass, which we're one of the only few in the country that actually takes cans. Not cans, glass, because we sent it to a place in North Carolina who does optical scanning and separates it, and they make more glass out of those same colors. We accept cartons, meaning milk cartons, juice cartons, and that gets turned into toilet paper, paper towels, and napkins. And so those are the things that we take. Again, everybody thinks that if it's got a triangle on it, it's recyclable, and that is not the case. So questions so far? Am I going too fast and talking too fast? Anybody?
No, you're doing good, but I do want to ask, is there a number system? Like, how there's the numbers
Yes.
with the recyclable? Which ones? Is it 1 and 2?
Yeah, it is 1 and 2. So we accept number 1 and number 2. We do not take yogurt containers. We do not take butter tubs, but it is number 1 and number 2. It has to have a neck. I know Virginia Beach has talked about it a lot, that it's got to have a spout. You've got to be able to pour out of it. Other questions that are asked about plastics, which to me, plastics is the most confusing, is caps on, caps off. I've heard it both ways. The main thing with caps on or caps off, empty. Make sure it's empty. You can put the cap back on, or if you want to throw the cap away, throw it in the trash. We do not take the little teeny cap because our machinery does photo identification. Size means a lot to us. Another question that I get asked a lot is, well, what about shredded paper? It's got to be big enough to be able to be imaged. And so shredded paper, I tell people to put it in a paper bag, staple it up, put it in a box, tape it up, put it in its recycle bin. I get asked a lot about staples and tape is not good for you. Why are you doing that? It doesn't matter when it comes to staples or tape. It's not a problem. So other questions. So again, I like this interactive because, I could talk all day long. So anybody else have a question?
What about like clean aluminum foil?
Well, here's the problem with that. Aluminum foil, when it's melted, what happens with aluminum, it doesn't take any brand new virgin material to make more aluminum. So when they melt it, the time that it takes to melt aluminum can versus aluminum foil is completely different. So it may just kind of disintegrate. You can put it in there, but I'm not 100% sure that it's going to be completely recycled because it may just kind of go away. So we kind of say no, we kind of frown upon that. So other questions? So how does it really happen? So what we're going to do next is talk about how the actual process happens. Another video, we're going to condense that video. So I want you to see exactly what the stars are. So one of the cool things that I think happens is our machinery does photo identification. So it's looking for, say, I don't have a bottle on here. So say this cell phone, it was looking for it. So it knows that this cell phone is going to get recycled. We know it's not going to get recycled, but it's looking for the image of a bottle. It's looking for the image of a piece of paper that's flat because it rides over it. It looks for the image of a jug. So it's doing imaging and split-second picture taking. It's doing the same thing with a cart. So then when it goes through the line, the image tells it where to go. So again, the plastics get separated in water and soda bottles being one because they're basically imaged the same way. It's looking for the image and it knows the weight of, say, a detergent bottle. And so it tells that where to go in a separate area. And then again, it tells about water and soda, not water and soda, water and milk jugs. You've seen the milky milk jug? That is the three separations of plastic. Then it uses the rare earth magnet to say, I want this aluminum or this metal to go this way. You know, aluminum is not going to be picked up by a magnet, but a special magnet it will be. And then it tells that where to go. And then it images and then it makes it a bale. And then that bale is ready to go to market at the end of the day. Now it has to be inspected, but we have to have bookings for that market and there has to be a market for it. In 2000, I'm trying to think, it was 2008 when the stock market fell so high, so bad. The price of cardboard was $25 a ton. Well, it takes about $80 to $100 to process it. Markets got better, they've gotten worse. We've seen markets bad in my 19 years of being at TFC about 3 times. Right now, it's coming up some. It's been on the shady side. It's not been very good, but there still are viable markets for it. So don't think that we don't have a market. We have plenty of markets for it. I once was with Coca-Cola and they wanted plastic jugs or bottles. And they said, you know, we would like to go all plastic bottles, but there's not, they're getting probably about 50% plastic recycled versus virgin. And they really, and it's a lot cheaper to make it from recycled content versus virgin content. So you want to go to that next video to show how everything does happen?
Gotcha.
And we're going to start at a certain time. I don't want to bore you with the whole thing.
It needs to go.
As the material comes into TFC's world-class facility in
Pacific.
Chesapeake, Virginia, it's checked in and weighed. It's then unloaded onto the tipping floor. From there, the material's loaded into the system to begin the sorting process. Next, it goes into a drum feed that moves it into the system at a consistent rate, level loading the system. At this point, non-recyclable items are removed from the stream. Then the glass is broken up, removed, and sent to another section of the system. More on that in a moment. Cardboard is taken out of the system, riding on top of a series of mechanical screens, moving eventually to a bunker where it will be held until baled. The remaining material continues through the system where it's screened, first manually, and then through a series of T-Tech optical sorters. The sorters use photo identification software to sort out all the remaining fiber, which is moved on for further processing and baling. The containers are further processed. PET or soda bottles are separated from other plastics like milk jugs and laundry detergent containers. Meanwhile, steel and aluminum are removed from the stream. For steel, an overbelt magnet pulls the material from the belt. Aluminum is removed with an eddy current magnet, which aluminum cans pass over and are repelled into another bunker. Once all the recyclables are separated, they're baled for delivery to processing facilities in the United States and around the world. Newspaper, mixed paper, and cardboard are baled on a machine capable of producing up to 40 tons an hour. The separated grades of plastic are baled for delivery as well. Glass is processed a little bit differently. It's moved outside where it's cleaned and then sent to a third-party processor. There, it's color separated and then sent to bottle manufacturers. They turn it back into other usable products. TFC is the only local recycler that recycles glass back into bottles, keeping it out of the landfill.
So that's pretty much what happens. Now, when we put that machinery in again, I think it was $11.5 million. We're constantly upgrading it. I think we're going to be putting more like robots in. I think that's within the next year. We've started doing some construction and moving things around so that can happen. So I'm thinking hopefully by the mid next year, you will see that happening. So does anybody have questions?
I have questions.
Okay.
What are the most often like wrongly recycled things that like we would think is like okay that you haven't mentioned already?
Well, I mean, I still say the plastic bag. I mean, people put water hoses. They put anything that tangles. I think sometimes, and I know this is silly sounding, but I think sometimes they think that Goodwill Industry has a direct contact with us, and you put it in your recycling bin, and it ends up somewhere that can be reused. I mean, we get toys, we get, we get electronics, we get engine parts because it's steel. We don't take engine parts. We take metal cans and aluminum cans. So, we take, we take a lot of things, but we don't take the things that I think a lot of people think that scrap metal is, all the time. We get vinyl siding, we get construction and demolition. This time of year, leaves. Bags and bags and bags of leaves. So you name it, we get it.
I do have a list that I started creating to ask you.
Okay.
So I'm guessing tissue paper is okay to recycle.
Yeah, it is. But I will say this, you can recycle paper about 7 times. So when your first paper's made, there's a lot of fiber in it. And then as you recycle, it's a little less, till the point that it's like tissue paper, toilet paper, whatever. I will say that cartons and jugs are made into tissue paper and toilet paper. Yes, they can be. Now, this time of year, greeting cards are always a question. There's 2 things that you need to remember about greeting cards. A lot of it has glitter on it, and we don't want it. And a lot of the greeting cards are clay-based versus paper-based. So I know, how do you figure that one out? I'll never forget years and years and years ago, I'm dating myself, but we had to do like a wet test to learn about paper. And if you have wet strength in it and you wet it, you'll see the fiber in it. If it's clay-based, it will kind of just dissolve and disintegrate. So there is nothing. What's going to happen if it gets put in there? Probably nothing, because it's going to act like it's paper. We have a threshold of contamination, which is pretty low, but it's obtainable. One of the reasons why we changed from sending things to China was because the threshold of contamination went to less than 10% to 0.5%. And that was unattainable. So we said, forget it. We're not doing it anymore.
One more I have is when you recycle cans and glass jars, do you have to take the wrappers off, or they're fine as is?
No, you do not. They're fine as is. People
And
overthink it. A lot of people think shiny, like magazines, are not
right,
recyclable, and they are recyclable.
I know when you told me that, I was so shocked. I didn't
I'm
know that.
sorry. Could you have
No,
saved
it's
a lot of
great.
magazines?
Yes.
Sorry.
And I read too, because I was reading up more on composting, and they say, like you can compost like dirty, like paper towels that you wouldn't be able to recycle,
Yes.
but not ones that you're using as tissues. But they were saying like, magazines you shouldn't compost because there's like chemicals in it. So definitely recycle them. So yeah, that's great. That's good news.
Right. I think I'm watching our time, but so I've been very, very fortunate. We all met Francie, whoever came on the tour. She's from Germany, and she emailed me about the same time then that Old Dominion emailed me about taking a tour. And so we got to learn from Francie, who's from Germany, about what they do in Germany, because sometimes I think the United States is not doing their part. I've been to other countries, and that's the one thing that I ask is, what is their waste management program? And so, talking to Francie, tell us what your degree is in.
Yeah, I'm studying recycling and waste management in my bachelor's degree, and I'm doing my an internship here in the US right now with Lieber, and I'm writing my bachelor's thesis here at the moment on the topic of diverting wood from landfilling. Yeah, and I put together like a little presentation about the waste management in Germany. It's not the backgrounds like Katie just told us about. It's more like what happens up front on the consumer side. I think that will be more interesting, and it's also Very, very different and a little bit more elaborate. So yeah. Should I just start now or what's the plan? Okay, great.
Sure.
Yeah, you should be able to share your screen.
Yeah, I think so too. It should be one moment. You should see my screen by now, right?
Yes.
Okay, just let me figure out how to close that and how to open, like put the. It's always so huge, but I think I can start like this as well. All right. Do you guys see that as well? Yeah, right. I need to close
Yeah.
that. So this is basically an overview of what we do. So we do have curbside and also curbside recycling, also bring systems. Curbside is more prominent in urban areas and bring systems are more common in rural areas. We separate in general waste, that's always curbside, paper and cardboard, packaging materials, it's called the yellow bag. Biological waste, I put that in brackets because I'll explain later why actually. We have glass as a fraction. I just specified packaging glass because it is supposed to be only for packaging actually. So the things that you buy in the grocery stores, like canned food and stuff like this type of glass, because the household glass that you have at home, if it's not a bottle or something, the one you drink out of, it's a different type of glass. So yeah, that is not really wanted there. And then we have deposit schemes for cans and plastic bottles and glass bottles. Actually, I forgot to put them there. Batteries, small electronics, and illuminants can be brought to different places like supermarkets and can be handed in there. And then we have Sperrmüll. It's just bulky waste, and you can get that picked up as well, or bring it to the Wertstoffhof, and that is the recycling area basically where you can bring anything. Yeah, so general waste is more expensive than recycling, and it gets incinerated always, and the ashes get landfilled. Other resources that basically survive the incineration, like metals and stuff, get taken out of the ashes. And the practice of incinerating all waste before landfilling is in practice since 2005. And the incineration reduces the volume by roughly like 90% or something like that. Katie, you will know as well, I think. Yeah, and obviously that is a necessity because we do have way less land and space than the US. Like Germany is really in a pinch about space. It's very heavily inhabited. Yeah, so we need to figure that out differently. It doesn't work to just, dump it as in the landfills here. And the regular trash can would be 80 liters. It's this one. That would be around like 21 gallons. I noticed that the ones that are here, obviously because they're way less like recycling fractions, but they are much bigger. I think they would be around this size. And that is the biggest one that we have aside from these like huge ones. Can you see my mouse, by the way?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. So this is what's usually used for commercial areas or also for what's it called, multi-family homes, when you have flats and you have renters, and they would use this one if you have so many people, and this is like household size. And I know a lot of people actually who use less than 21 gallons. That would be this one. The bottom is full, it's not empty, so that is only the filled area. It's just the same size so that you can pick it up with the with the car basically. So this is just to show you a little bit about the cost. That is general waste and that is biological waste. And if we compare, the biological doesn't have an 80 liter, so we'll take the 120 liters. If we want that to get picked up weekly, then that would be 23.04 euros. It's like roughly $20. And if we want to have the biological waste picked up weekly, it's only half as much. It's basically $10, like 12 euros. So this is one of the incentives why people would want to have like biological waste. Additionally, it's not always a choice. Most of the time you actually need to pay for both. Yeah. And then this would be paper and cardboard. I just put some pictures because that's the way that it is. So this would be like for bigger residential areas, or if it's a rural area, then you won't have that at your home. And you will have these at places you usually frequent. That would be sometimes like the supermarket or the designated recycling areas, and you can just leave your stuff there. It shouldn't be as full as there, but you know, sometimes it doesn't work that well. And people like after Christmas, it would look like this. And then that is quite rare, but in some areas you don't have containers, but you have to like gather your cardboard and paper like that and bind it together in packages like this somehow, and then they get picked up. You just put it aside on the street, and then the waste management company will come and pick it up. And the most regular will be just to have a bin outside. It's bigger usually most of the time because paper and cardboard obviously have a lot more volume. So this would be bigger than the general waste container. Then we have the yellow bag. That is a packaging material. It's called a dual system. Which means that it's financed by the private economy basically, and it's there as a secondary, as a support system to the public waste management fees basically. So it started in 1991. I just wanted to put that down because you know it has been 30 years now. So yeah. And it's been successfully in practice since then, basically. So the numbers are really good, the recycling numbers, but only roughly 2/3 of it is getting actually like properly recycled. The other 1/3 would be used as a secondary fuel in combustions, like as a fuel just to heat some things up, kind of like cement production areas usually use stuff like this because they can, and it's very cheap, obviously. Yeah, and the industry and trade pay licensing fees for the usage of packaging. So if you want to, if you're producing packaging and you sell it to the consumer, at that point you will be responsible to financing the disposal. And here, this is how the bag would look, and it's also written on there basically what goes in there. I'll just translate it quickly. This is metals, which means like cans, also aluminum cans for drinks, then closures, anything like metallic closures, like lids or stuff like this, aluminum. I really don't know this. If you make food inside, you know, you can have these things on the barbecue. You can have this aluminum things, but they're supposed to be clean. Maybe not the ones used for barbecuing. Yeah, everything aluminum. Aluminum foil, that is actually can go in there as well if it's clean, or if it's not, you know, like with fat and stuff like this. And then, but you're supposed to bunch it up so that it's easier to fish out of it, basically, out of the other stuff. This is one of the ones that would also go into separation, kind of like what Katie explained already. They would work with magnets and optical sorting and stuff like that. This is plastic, so we do have foils, and then we have bottles, everything that you would put into recycling here as well. And then also like yogurt, you know, yogurt cups and stuff like this. And butter sometimes comes in like these plastic things, or margarine, like plant butter. Yeah. And then here we have the milk cartons or drink cartons, that one that are Verbundstoffe, that's called, because it's two materials put together. You will have carton and aluminum together, right? And vacuum packaging, I don't really know about that. I've never used that. And then also what can go in there is styrofoam. Yeah, so all of the styrofoam can go in there as well. Interestingly, for the yellow bag, the official recycling numbers is over 100%, because not everything that goes in there or that the consumer puts in there is actually, how to say it, even if the material is the correct one, it can go over 100% because it might be some products which the industry have not paid for. And if you pass that threshold, basically, then you can get a recycling number for over 100%. Yeah, and this would look like that. So this is a couple of things that go in. Then we have the big containers again, then the smaller ones. These would most of the time also be bigger than the general waste containers, but most of the time you will put it in a yellow bag. You can get the yellow bag from the city, and then you would put it in front of your house like this. This is like multiple people put theirs outside like that, and then they get picked up by waste management. And then in rural areas, you would have these, you would bring them to that like designated recycling space. And then biological waste, so you would just have a bin like any of the others as well, and you would put your organic waste in there. If it's mandatory, then you can say, okay, great, it's mandatory, but I do have a compost at home, like in my garden, and I'm composting there, and then you do not have to pay for that, and you do not have to receive the bin, which is really practical. Then you can just compost at home. This one would go into industrial composting. It's obviously like way bigger scale, and it reaches different temperatures to the home compost. I think it's around like I only know Celsius, 70 degrees Celsius. That would be over 3 times 70 degrees Fahrenheit, as far as I know, like temperature wise, something like this would be the number. So maybe like 110, 120 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm not entirely sure, but it's very hygienic, and all of the things break down much quicker.
150.
I think the overturn rate is like roughly 3 days or something like that. I would need to look into that again though, but there nowadays, since there are so many, so people usually put their biological waste into the, these like biodegradable plastic bags. And then they put it into the compost bin. But the problem with that is the sorting facilities, or the people who sort the waste, they cannot distinguish between the plastic bag that is biodegradable and the one that is not. And also the time that is that the biodegradable bag needs to actually be degraded is longer than what the industrial composting facility uses in the overturn rate. So that is one of the problems there. And then we also separate glass. And we separate glass by colors even. So this is a typical place, how it would look like. That would be somewhere in your residential area. And then you would just most probably pass by either with your car if you have a lot of glass, but a lot of people don't have the car. So I would just like have a tote bag or something like this full of glass, and then I would go there and like throw it in. We separate into white glass, brown glass, and green glass. And anything that is other color than these three would go into green, because that's the most forgiving color-wise. And then we have the deposit scheme. That would be all that you can see here. All plastic bottles, all aluminum cans that are sold in Germany have to be in the deposit scheme. You cannot just say, oh, it's not. If it's imported, it can be not in the deposit scheme, but everything that's like sold in Germany, which is not imported, yeah, that has to be there. And then the machines would look like this, and you would put all of the above, you would put in the top slot. And for all of these on the top, you get 25 cents. We could do like, that's 20 cents, dollar cents. Is it even cents? Yeah, you can do a one by one conversion. That would be fine. And then the bottom, you can even put like the full containers like this in there. You get a crate. Is that a crate of beer? And then you can like drink all of the beer, and then you put the bottles back in, and then you would just put it in like that. And you get, there's a deposit for the crate as well, I think, and it's even like €5, which is probably like $4 or something like that.
So can I ask you real quick? Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah,
So
sorry.
we have this deposit thing, not in Virginia, but we do in other states.
Yeah.
I think California does it. I know that New York does it, or at least they used to. But the crates is very interesting. So is that how you all purchase things in glasses? Like it's a returnable crate that you have to use? Is it always like that?
No, you can also buy it with paper crates. But then it's only a 6-pack. If it's that big and people, like their beer, they buy it this big, you can get also other drinks like that. It's not only beer. You can get like juices in glass bottles, and water, and lemonade and stuff like this. And then yeah, you can get it in crates like this. That's pretty common. And these are reusable, and the glass bottles actually, in most of the cases, or specifically the beer bottles, they can be reused. So they don't get crushed and used as new glass, but they get reused as the bottle itself.
We also used to do that many, many, many,
Mhm.
many years ago. And they stopped doing that for, I guess, I would assume like hygienic reasons or maybe just
Yeah,
for
but I
convenience.
think, I mean, if you wash them out properly, right?
No,
Like
for
technically
sure.
it should
Yeah,
be
no, I agree.
yeah. Yeah, but I do get it. It's all about the economic version as well. And you know, like we have basically, I mean, there are different beer bottles as well, but if you get them like this, then you know, or the crates have to go back to the brewery, and then some of the bottles will only be for some breweries, as example, and they will have to organize all that, so it's not that cheap. So to get the bottles and everything back to the company who can actually reuse them. So it's not really super practical, but it's obviously nice for recycling. Yeah. And then we also can take batteries, small electronics, and illuminants. I couldn't find a picture about that, but usually after you pay at the grocery store, you can go, like we don't get things back at the grocery store. You buy it and you put it back in your cart. And then from your cart, you put it into your car or something like this, or you bring your own bags. And I mean, you can bag it, but then you have to bag it yourself. And it's not, it works a bit different. So there's usually an area after the cashier's area where you pay, that's designated to sort your stuff in your shopping cart or like put it in your bags and things like this. And these will usually also have kind of like an area where you can put cardboard and plastics already from the things that you bought that you don't want to take home, or you can leave batteries and illuminants there. Small electronics is actually not for that area specifically, but technically you're supposed to be able to give them back everywhere. You just have to ask. Like everywhere that sells small electronics also has to take them back. Same actually with the bottle deposit scheme. Everywhere where they sell deposit bottles, they have to take them back. Glass is different though. Like for glass, I mean, if you sell glass, you also have to take that back. But some stores just don't sell glass bottles just because of that. As example, like Aldi and Lidl, they don't sell glass bottles because of that rule. And then we have bulky waste. So bulky waste, it will usually look like this. And you have, I think, what's that, 2 appointments a year that you can have for free, where you put your stuff outside like that, and then they come and pick it up. And the fun part about this, I love it because I just walk by usually like things like this, and you can find some pretty good stuff in there as well. Yeah, and then, but you could also, if any of these options is not your thing and you would rather like take on the work yourself, you would drive to a Wertstoffhof. And they will just have all of these containers which are labeled, and they will have staff there and opening hours, and you drive by and you tell them what you have, and they will help you like sort it in the containers. Yeah, and it's a little bit more elaborate on the fractions, like what you can put in there. Yep. And oh yeah, that was just something interesting that I found recently. So and that's like the solid waste per capita per person per year. This is in kilograms, but I translated it. So the US would be at 1,785 pounds. Germany would be at 1,426 pounds. And Japan, that was really, really surprising for me at least. And it's a crazy developed country, but they, for some reason, they have half, like 728 pounds per person, which is amazing.
Yeah, I heard somebody recently say that they use a lot of plastic too, so that's interesting.
Yeah.
And they are very neat though. I do think it's interesting that you guys aren't too far behind us, and I wonder if that's
No, not at all. Honestly, I was expecting that much though, because having a good recycling quota obviously doesn't say anything about the waste, how much you use, right?
Yes. So I wonder if that's like I'm thinking about us, like our responsibility as a community, as opposed to what's going on behind the scenes. Like they are recycling it, but less of the responsibility is on us as opposed to Germany. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like but I do feel, I mean, Katie, I think would agree with that, if, I mean, obviously the more work you do at the beginning, right? the better it will be later on. And especially, I'm not sure, but like in Germany, systems like this have been in place. I mean, I don't know anything else. I'm 27 now. I don't know anything else. I grew up like this. And it's basically ingrained in me. I think if you grow up with that and you do it all of the time in your family, for me, it's also not hard as well. There are certain things that people struggle with regularly, but that's just also a communication thing, you know, because sometimes you don't know like what goes into which ways, and then I think Katie had that, if you don't know, like throw it out, something like that, right? That saying?
Right.
Yeah, so that's basically applicable as well.
I was just looking. So several years ago, I heard that we throw away between 4 and 5 pounds per day as Americans. And I just did the math. And yes, that's right. A couple of things that really, really strikes home is the responsibility of the packaging companies. I think the United States really, really, really needs to put more on those packaging. I mean, you've looked at Amazon and how they've changed in the last couple of years. I think they're taking more ownership.
Yeah.
But everybody else needs to take more ownership. Yeah. I was talking to someone the other day who was saying that 5 cent, if you were a bottle bill state, which we had talked about, maybe I think New York is one, Hawaii. I think there's some northern states that are, Connecticut maybe. 5 cents is nothing. And so if we made it harder, like your 25 cent, maybe people would do it. But the thing is we need to get the states involved and get in touch with local and state stakeholders, you know, and really put ownership on them and say, look, we need to do this.
Yeah.
But I really do think we need to do more about taking ownership when it comes to as a consumer. We need to put it more on the people that are making the money, that make all the things that we buy as Americans, and we do buy a lot.
Yeah. I think I think it's very, as I said, Germany is not too far off with the amount. I think it should be very much communicated that as perfect as recycling can be, or as good as recycling can be, just refusing. I think, do you guys have like the 5-tier hierarchy or the 3-tier hierarchy? Because there's
I think there's a 5. I think there's a 5. I think there is a 5.
Yeah, there is a 5. I think it's like refuse, reduce, reuse, recycle, and then
rethink.
I forgot.
I use rethink.
Oh yeah, or rethink, exactly. So that, that is definitely like consuming less immediately makes less waste. And if you don't need to recycle, then that is already the perfect situation if there's nothing, So basically the zero waste approach. I don't think it's feasible anytime soon, or it will be, but yeah, obviously that is the approach that should be taken. Yeah.
A couple of comments that I wanted to make is, when we started single stream recycling, I think it was in the late 90s. So single stream is when you put everything together.
Yeah.
Whether it be bottles and jugs and paper and cartons and all that stuff. We're a very wasteful society, but we're also a very lazy society. So I believe we had a cleaner product as a recycling company when we put everything in its own little bin. But then here's the problem. We have a plant in Chester, and Francie went to the Chester plant. It was only a few years ago that they stopped doing the separation and went to single stream. And it was only a year ago that they went from having a big 96-gallon cart versus a small bin. And that small bin was even cleaner because the driver had to manually get out, pick up the bin, and then put it into the recycling truck. So he saw the things before it got to the truck. When you have the big 96-gallon cart, you don't see what's going in the recycling bin. So, you could have everything but the kitchen sink. I mean, I'm telling you, I've seen the kitchen sink come through. So I do believe that it's all about time, where we recycle around 40 tons an hour with a 96-gallon cart, doing it that way, versus a plant that is smaller and was doing it in the bins, was doing about 15 tons an hour. So
yeah,
it's all about money.
I think also a thing that makes it difficult is that the system is very unstable. It's not like, legally now you have to recycle, and that will be the case for the next like 30 years or something. So you can gradually improve your approach. But it's, oh, these ones will have recycling, these ones will not. Here you recycle, here you don't. And then, sometimes there's even like different things that go in. I think that also makes it very difficult.
So I do wonder, do you know, Fran, if like our recycling is contracted out to TFC, do you guys have that there, or is it just purely the government that does your waste management?
It's not government. It's all private sector, the
Okay.
recycling that is done actually. So yeah, it gets contracted out by the city. So there are different people as well. We just have a couple of really big ones who do like most of it all over Germany or all over Europe actually.
Gotcha.
Another thing that Francie brought up is waste to energy or incineration. This really sickens me, but we have something called the RDF plant. It's called the Refuge Derived Fuel Plant. And all of the MSW, which means municipal solid waste, in the cities like Chesapeake, Norfolk, no, Suffolk's not one of it, Portsmouth, that all goes to the Refuge Derived Fuel Plant. And so in Hampton, all of theirs goes to the NASA Hampton Steam Plant. So on the south side, it going to the RDF plant in a year that is slated to close. Number one is the Navy's going to start burning their own or making their own energy. And I'm not thinking it's from garbage. What happens with it? All the municipal solid waste went to this refuge derived fuel plant. It's burnt to make heat the water, to make the steam, to make the electricity for Norfolk Naval Shipyard. And in a year, it's gone. So every bit of it is going to go to the Suffolk landfill in this area, which I think is sad. It's a shame that, we don't have that waste to energy option in about a year. And so it sounds like in Europe, they have a lot of that.
So I don't know about the other countries at the moment, but technically I think it's an EU regulation that nothing should be landfilled untreated. So incineration is counted as a treatment. It's called just like I forgot the word for that. Like, oh no, thermal treatment. It's called thermal treatment. And it's not supposed to be the gold standard. It's just so obviously it's on the lower side of the recycling hierarchy. But the obviously really good point is that it reduces, number one, it hygienizes. So obviously through incineration, everything gets hot, and like everything, like most of the things will burn off or get like hygienized, and you won't have any contaminants or like that many contaminants in it anymore. And then also the volume would be reduced by 90%, and that is huge. If you look at the landfills here, that would already do a lot. And plus you have that energy that you could just reuse and like generate or heat. I mean, heat generation, it's pretty warm in this area, so that's not a thing, but maybe for different areas, or you could just use it for energy. Any more questions or something like that?
I've been very fascinated by you, Francie. I'm so glad that you connected with me at about the same time that Sam, y'all connected with me with Old Dominion. And so Francie's getting ready is seeing a lot of stuff.
Yeah. No, thank you, Katie. I wouldn't be able to organize all of, like, to have seen so many things in such a short time without all of your contacts.
Oh, you're welcome.
Agreed. Thank you so much.
So does anybody else? Questions?
Yeah. I was going to ask, does anybody have any questions for either Fran or for Kathy?
I tell you, we have a couple of things that could really help us. So again, Chesapeake stopped recycling a couple of years ago. We've been hearing rumblings that they want to start again. The Virginia Beach bid is up for renewal, and it's got to be rebid out. Norfolk is probably in the next year as well. So if you enjoy recycling or want it to continue, you want to save natural resources, be a voice. If you need to be a voice, contact your city councilman and say, we need to recycle. It does cost a lot. It's more money to landfill than it is to recycle. It produces more jobs by recycling. And we are a local company. One thing that gives us a lot of value is that the family that I worked for generations ago started the first recycling company in America in the late 1800s. So I think that gives us a lot of value. And recycling is not going anywhere. There are markets. We have a lot of markets. Could we do it better? Absolutely. I'm sure we could. And that as technology changes, we're going to move with it. But I think education is the key. And again, if y'all didn't hear, but again, these are the things that we recycle. But that EPA grant is big, and it's going to be a 3-year. You're going to start seeing a lot of things, happen, whether it's, commercials, radio, social media. There's going to be companies that are going to be hired to go in areas to do audits of people's recycling. And recycling happens a lot based on social economics. And we've proven that because we've done several audits with different cities and go into the different social economic areas, rural versus the metropolitan areas versus, the inner city areas. There is a difference. And so it's a lot that we all can learn. So any questions?
I wanted to show real quick, and if any questions, if anybody has any, just feel free to unmute and ask or put in the chat. And I know we're almost done. I just wanted to show some of the pictures from the landfill tour that we did, which I'll make like a slide and show you guys the next time we have a general body meeting, but just some quick ones. So this was, we saw these sticking out of the ground and we were wondering what they were. And so this was part of the landfill, and these were like methane collectors. And so they would take the gas and it would be piped to, I guess like a energy facility is what he said, right?
I think it went through didn't it go to Virginia Natural Gas somehow?
Yeah.
It used to go to a chemical company, and then part of it was flared off, but the way he talked, it went through the pipeline.
Right. And so they are reusing methane for renewable energy. So that was something neat that I learned. And this was the leaching, right? The water runoff from the landfill. You guys correct me if I'm saying stuff wrong, because I'm not
is the term.
Leachate, that's it. Thank you. And so they still are sending this to HRSD to filter and then, put back in our water system. Yeah. And I think he said, I can't remember how much water he said a day. It was a lot.
So if anybody
20
wants
gallons,
to take a tour, right? If you want to take a tour of the landfill, we kind of did because we only had a pickup truck that held 3 people, including the driver. Not including the driver, but if y'all wanted to take a landfill tour, that's been talked about when y'all met at our plant. If we could get a van or something, I mean, I'm sure we could probably do it. It's just, I am not in landfill business, but I have contacts.
And this is at the top where they were working on the waste. I think they said that they like ground it down with their machines to make it more flat so it didn't fly off. And then they put topsoil over, which they would use dirt that they were excavating from a site that they may be getting, or they would use as well tires that they shred on site as top cover. And also they said the local like peanut place, they use their their shelf. So it was neat. Super neat. We definitely learned that there's more stuff, so I'll make a slide. But they definitely try to get rid of as much waste or use what they can before just putting it on the landfill. So